Aloha! My name is Darren Lerner, and I am the Director of the University of Hawaiʻi Sea Grant College Program, otherwise known as Hawaiʻi Sea Grant. Hawaiʻi Sea Grant supports an innovative program of research, education, and extension services directed toward the improved understanding and stewardship of coastal and marine resources of the state, region, and nation. This is Hawaiʻi Sea Grant Podcast number 2, Resilient Communities.
Aloha, my name is Rachel, and I'm a communications specialist at Hawaiʻi Sea Grant. Welcome to our 321 podcast. This podcast features research supported by Hawaiʻi Sea Grant. Each episode highlights a new project and the people that make that project possible. I'll ask these researchers to define 3 words commonly used in their research, give them 2 minutes to explain how their research benefits communities here in Hawaii, and end by asking them to provide one thing they know about each other than their research. So, 3 words, 2 minutes, and 1 thing. It's a 321 podcast. We're learning about climate adaptation this podcast. Here to share their research are Daniele Spirandelli and her graduate fellow, Alisha Summers. Let's start by introducing yourselves.
Hi, my name is Daniele, and I'm an assistant professor with the Department of Urban and Regional Planning and an extension faculty with Sea Grant College at the University of Hawaii at Manoa.
Hi, I'm Alisha, and I am a graduate fellow in the Department of Urban and Regional Planning.
So can you briefly tell me what your project is about?
For our research, we are looking at climate change related hazards, in particular coastal related hazards as they are related to sea level rise. And so the way that we're going about this is through a series of pretty in-depth community meetings where we're using this mediated dialogue approach and then talking about, well, what are the vulnerabilities in terms of the climate stressors? What are the potential impacts and consequences? And then what are the outcomes? And then related to that, what are potential actions that might be done either at a private level or public actions?
So 3 words you used a lot in your research are vulnerabilities, risks, and stakeholders. Can you explain what these words mean?
Vulnerability can take on several different definitions. We chose to take on the same definition that the IPCC uses, and that involves estimating the exposure that an area might have to particular hazards, combined with the sensitivities that that area or the people in that area or the assets or resources in that area have to the hazards themselves. It also involves the capabilities for adapting to those hazards.
How about risks?
Risks is the potential for consequences where something valuable is at stake. It's looking at like a result of the interaction between vulnerability and hazards. In West Kauaʻi, you can say that a certain area is at high risk, so it's more highly probable to be affected by climate change impacts such as sea level rise, whereas another area may be at a lower risk.
Okay, and stakeholders, where do they come into this?
We really needed to start at the ground level of what the communities care about and what are some of the already present day potential management issues or management problems that they're experiencing that could only be exacerbated by climate change. We pulled a whole source of resources of different types of experts, community members, asset managers, resource managers, which you could call the stakeholders. The community themselves did not like that name at all. So we've backtracked. We don't actually use the word stakeholders. And it really is more like the, experts,
Okay, can you tell me in 2 minutes or less how your research benefits the communities here in Hawaii?
So our research can benefit the communities here in Hawaii in the aspect where it can kind of lead as an example for other coastal communities in Hawaii. Because we live in a chain of islands, there's going to be many places that are highly vulnerable to climate change impacts. And it's very important for all of the coastal communities to recognize how they can better adapt to these potential impacts. And by taking an approach like how we are doing, where it's a combination of quantitative and qualitative information gathering, we can create these assessments to help these coastal communities become more resilient and recognize altogether what we need to do to battle this potential impacts from climate change.
Okay, well, that's a wrap. But before we go, we want to ask you, what's one thing, Danielle, that you know about Alisha other than her research?
I know that Alisha has a father who is an identical twin, which has been really fun to learn about and to share stories over, because my daughters are also identical twin girls.
Not very common.
Yeah.
Well, Alisha, what's one thing you know about Danielle other than her research?
She's from Northern California, where the water is very cold, so she didn't often swim as much, but she really appreciated the coastal scenery, and that's how she kind of became passionate about doing coastal management research.
Well, stay tuned for our next podcast, and mahalo for listening. Aloha.
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 This Hawaii Sea Grant 321 podcast featured 3 songs: Happiness by bensound.com, Ukulele by bensound.com, and Cute by bensound.com. Find them on iTunes and bensound.com.